Ethan walked carefully through the alien jungle, his boots sinking slightly into the mossy ground. The air was thick and warm. It's full of strange smells and quiet sounds, buzzing insects, rustling leaves, and distant animal calls. He had been walking alone for 3 hours, searching for signs of life or trouble. His mission was simple: scout the area, mark any hostile activity, and return. But something wasn't right today. Suddenly he heard it, a soft cry, almost like a whisper, coming from somewhere ahead. It wasn't a human voice, but it wasn't an animal either. He moved quickly now. Pushing through thick plants and glowing vines, his hand rested on the grip of his plasma knife. Just in case, then he saw her, an alien girl, tall, thin, with silver blue skin and bright violet eyes, was tied to a tree. Her clothes were torn, her head hung low, and her body shook with fear. Ethan paused, confused. She didn't look like a soldier, and there were no weapons near her. Who would do this to someone like her? Before he could think further, he heard a sharp sound, thwip. An arrow flew through the trees, aimed straight at her chest. Without thinking, Ethan jumped forward, putting himself between the girl and the arrow. It hit him in the shoulder. The force pushing him to his knees, pain shot through his body, but he didn't stop. Another arrow came, and he blocked it with his arm. The third one scraped his side. But still, he stood in front of her, shielding her. The attackers were hidden in the trees. He couldn't see them, but they were many. He gritted his teeth, pulled out his knife, and scanned the shadows. A voice shouted something in an alien language, and the arrows stopped. Whoever they weren't expecting a human. The attackers disappeared into the jungle. Leaving only silence behind, Ethan turned to the girl. Now staring at him in shock, blood dripped from his wounds, but he smiled weakly. "You okay?" he asked, his voice shaking. The girl didn't speak right away. She stared at him like she didn't believe what just happened. Then, slowly, she nodded. You saved me?" she said in a soft voice. He nodded. "Yeah, looks like it," and then he collapsed. The pain finally too much. The alien girl rushed forward, catching him before he hit the ground. She was stronger than she looked. She lifted him with effort and placed him gently on the forest floor. She pulled a small device from her belt and pressed it against his chest. A warm blue light covered his wounds, slowing the bleeding. "You shouldn't have done that," she whispered. "I had to," Ethan replied, his voice weak. Didn't seem right to just watch. She looked at him for a long moment in her world. No one would have done what he did, not even her own kind. She was a traitor in their eyes, someone to be silenced. But this human, this stranger, had taken arrows for her. "I'm Lyra," she said. "Ethan," he replied, barely able to speak. Lyra looked around the jungle, worried the attackers might return. She touched a button on her wrist, and a holographic map appeared. A hidden shelter was nearby. If she moved fast, she could get him there in time, with great effort. She pulled his arm over her shoulder and started walking. Ethan groaned, but didn't fight her. He trusted her now. For some reason he didn't understand. As they walked, the forest seemed to grow quiet again. No more arrows, no more enemies for now. Lyra knew this was only the beginning. Her people would come back, and this time they would bring more than arrows. And now she had something more to protect, not just herself, but the man who had shielded her with his own body when they reached the shelteran old alien cave hidden behind. Glowing plants. Lyra placed Ethan gently on a smooth bed carved from stone and moss. She brought out healing items, wrapped his wounds, and stayed beside him as he slept that night. As she watched him breathe, she whispered to the stars, "Why would a human do this? For me?" She didn't know the answer, but in her heart, something had changed, something powerful, and for the first time in years, she felt safe. Ethan didn't dream that night. He slept like a stone, his body weak, his wounds deep. But around him, the alien shelter glowed softly with warmth, powered by crystals in the walls. And Lyra, the girl he saved, stayed close watching. Thinking, listening to his breathing, outside the jungle, whispered secrets. Strange birds called in the distance, and small glowing insects floated near the vines. But inside the cave, there was only silence.
Lyra sat cross-legged beside him.
Her hands glowing blue with healing gel every few minutes. She leaned over to check his pulse. When his breath grew shallow, she panicked, but his heart kept beating strong. "This human," she whispered, "he's made of fire and madness." She had never seen anything like it. He had jumped in front of arrows without knowing her name. She had seen soldiers run from less, but this man, Ethan, had stayed, had fought, had bled. Morning came slow. Light pouring through cracks in the stone ceiling, Ethan groaned, shifting slightly, his eyes fluttering open. "Am I dead?" he muttered. Lyra leaned closer, her face calm. "No," she said, "but you were close." He blinked at the alien girl in front of him, her violet eyes, her silver blue skin, her long dark hair braided with little shells. For a moment, he forgot where he was, then the pain hit him again, and he gasped, "Oh!" "Okay, not a dream." Lyra dipped a cloth in cool water and pressed it to his forehead. "You should rest," she said. "You lost much blood." He looked around at the alien cave, the smooth bed, the strange plants growing from the walls. "Nice place," he said weakly. "Better than sleeping in the mud." She smiled a little, just a flicker. "You're strange," she said. "Most humans I met were angry. Loud, always afraid." Ethan raised an eyebrow. "You've met others?" Her smile vanished. "I was a translator once,"
Ow.
she said. "Before they marked me." She pulled down the collar of her tunic to reveal a sharp red scar, burned into her neck, a symbol Ethan didn't recognize. "What does it mean?" he asked gently. "Traitor," she whispered. "I helped human prisoners escape. So they branded me and hunted me like an animal." Ethan sat up slowly, ignoring the pain. "That's why they tried to kill you." She nodded. "My own people," she said bitterly. "But you were a stranger, and you still stood in front of those arrows." He shrugged, wincing. Didn't seem fair. That's all. For a while they sat in silence. The jungle outside sang softly. Lyra handed him a bowl filled with steaming liquid. He sniffed it. It smelled like herbs and firewood. "It will help you heal," she said. "Drink." He did. It was bitter but warm. After just a few sips, his head felt clearer. His pain dulled, not gone, but easier to carry. He looked at her again. She had been so calm, so still, but he saw it now. The tiredness in her eyes, the tightness in her voice. "You've been alone for a long time," he said, not asking, just knowing. She didn't answer, but the way her lips pressed together said enough. "Not leaving," Ethan said. "Not until you're safe." Lyra shook her head. "It's not that easy. You don't understand how my people work." "Then teach me," he replied. "Start from the beginning." She looked at him for a long moment. Then she stood up, walked to the back of the cave, and returned holding a glowing orb. She placed it between them and tapped. Images appeared in the air, floating like ghosts, scenes of war, cages, prisoners, and the moment she helped them escape. "I was born into royalty," she said softly, "but I gave it all up because I believed in something better." Ethan watched the story in silence. When the images faded, he said only one thing: "You were right." Lyra blinked, caught off guard by his calm certainty. "Most wouldn't agree," she said. "Not most," he replied, smiling. She laughed short, surprised but real. And for the first time in years, her walls began to crack. Maybe this human wasn't just brave, maybe he was exactly what she needed. Outside, in the shadows of the trees, something watched them quietly. The jungle was still dangerous, but now they weren't facing it alone. The rain fell gently that morning, dripping through the cracks of the jungle canopy. Inside the cave, a soft blue flame danced in a stone bowl, keeping the space warm. Ethan was stronger now, his wounds healing slowly, but his thoughts were heavier than before. Lyra moved around the cave like a shadow, quiet and calm. She wasn't just nursing his body, she was watching him, measuring him, and he felt it too. Quiet connection growing between them, not built on words, but on survival. They had shared silence, pain, stories, and now something unspoken was forming between them. But Lyra still kept a distance, like there was something inside her she didn't want him to see. That afternoon, Ethan tried to stand, Lyra rushed to help, but he waved her off. "I need to move," he said, "or I'll go crazy." She didn't argue instead. She brought him outside into the clearing behind the shelter. It was small, covered in moss and glowing flowers, with a small stream running through it. "Welcome to my world," she said softly. Ethan walked slowly, each step heavy, but his eyes wide. Everything here was alive colors, so sharp it made Earth feel dull. "You lived here alone?" he asked. "For almost 2 years," she replied. "This was exile." "Until you arrived." He bent down to touch a glowing flower. "It's beautiful," he whispered. Lyra smiled. "It only glows for those it trusts." The petals shimmered brighter at his touch. She stared, stunned. "That's rare?" she said. Ethan grinned. "Maybe it knows I'm a good guy," she laughed, but her eyes were distant. "No. Maybe it knows you're not staying." He looked at her, serious now. "I never said I was leaving, you will," she replied. "Your people will come for you, and when they do," he said, "I'll ask them to take you too." Lyra turned away, biting her lip. "You don't understand my world," she said. "To them, I'm not a survivor. I'm a traitor, danger, a curse." Ethan stepped forward, wincing, but firm. "Then we make a new world," he said. "You and me." She stared at him, and for a long moment, neither of them spoke. Then she handed him something strange, an old ring made from silver vines and a small crystal. "From my mother," she said, "a bond ring. In my culture, you only give this to someone who would die for you." "I already did," Ethan said, with a smile. Lyra gently placed the ring in his palm. "You don't have to wear it now," she whispered. "Just keep it that night." They sat by the fire, side by side. She taught him alien words, how to say friend, safe light. He taught her how to whistle when she finally learned. She laughed, a pure sound that echoed through the cave. Ethan watched her, smiling, but something stirred inside him. Not just attraction, it was something deeper, like his soul recognized hers. Later, as the fire burned low, Lyra looked at him and said, "There is a word in my language. Born it means, the one who walks through fire with me." Ethan looked into her eyes and said, "Then call me that," and she did, softly like a prayer, Vereen. But far beyond their moment of peace, danger was rising. Scouts from Lyra's former clan had found signs of the human. Broken branches, drops of blood, faint heat signatures. They were coming back, and this time, they would not leave without a kill. Inside the cave, Lyra wrapped Ethan in a soft fur blanket and watched him fall asleep. She stood at the entrance, eyes glowing in the moonlight. "If they come for him," she whispered to herself, "they'll have to kill me first." The bond had begun. Not with promises or gifts, but with sacrifice and trust, and no scar or memory would ever break it. Asterisk, the forest didn't wake up that morning. The birds didn't sing. The wind didn't move. It was too quiet, like something was holding its breath. Lyra felt it first. She stepped out of the cave before sunrise, her eyes scanning the treetops. Her heart beat faster. But she didn't know why. Something old inside her, the part raised in royal training, was screaming a warning. She dropped to one knee and touched the moss footprints, faint, but not hers, and not Ethan's. She rushed back inside, her voice low but firm. "Ethan, wake up." He blinked. "Half asleep, huh? Is it morning?" "No," she said sharply. "It's war." Ethan jumped up despite the pain, his body still recovering, but his instincts sharp. Lyra handed him a blade, long and curved with a glowing edge. "This is not practice," she said. "You may have to kill today." He nodded slowly. "Then I'll fight to live." She handed him a pack inside were traps. Smoke bombs, an alien dust that burned when touched. They had no soldiers, no walls, no backup, just one half-healed human and one hunted alien girl. But they had something the hunters didn't, a reason to protect. Outside, Ethan helped her set traps. He strung up tripwires between thick roots. She rubbed poison on sharpened branches. Together they turned the forest into a maze of danger. Every small sound made Ethan tense. The hum of insects, the snap of leaves, any of them could be the first sign then. It came. A screech echoed through the jungle, high-pitched and cruel. Lyra froze, her breath catching. "They brought nightbirds," she whispered. "They hunt by scent. They won't stop until blood touches the ground." Ethan wiped sweat from his brow. "Then we give them more than they can handle." The first attackers came, fast, dark figures sliding through the trees with glowing eyes and sharpened claws. They didn't speak. They didn't hesitate. They wanted Lyra dead-end. They wanted Ethan out of the way. One stepped on a hidden spike and screamed. Another was caught in the wire and slammed into a tree. But still they came. 5, 6, maybe. More. Ethan stood with a spear in one hand, and Lyra behind him. He wasn't ready, but he didn't care. "Come on then," he growled. "Let's see how tough you really are." The first one lunged in. Ethan drove the spear through its chest. Another slashed his side, but he spun and struck with the blade Lyra gave him. Blood sprayed across the moss, blue and hot. He cried out, but stayed standing. Lyra fought beside him now, her blade dancing with speed and fire. She moved like a flame burning, cutting, protecting. One hunter grabbed Ethan's arm and bit into his shoulder. He screamed, falling to one knee. Lyra's eyes flared, and she drove her knife into the attacker's skull. "Don't you touch him," she shouted, her voice like thunder, breathing heavy. Ethan looked up at her. "You saved me this time," he said through gritted teeth. She grabbed his arm and pulled him back to cover. "We save each other now," she said. "No more keeping score." The last two hunters hesitated. Their leader was dead. The forest filled with fire and smoke. Lyra stepped forward, eyes glowing. "I'm no longer your prey," she said. "I'm your end." The hunters ran, vanishing into the trees like shadows in sunlight. When it was over, Ethan collapsed against a rock, bleeding but breathing. Lyra dropped beside him, her hands shaking. "You're hurt again," she said. "Always bleeding for me." He laughed weakly. "Yeah, I gotta stop doing that." She tore strips from her own tunic to wrap his wounds. "No," she said softly. "Never stop. You're the only one who made me feel alive again." That night, as they sat beside a fire made of broken arrows, Ethan leaned against her. They didn't speak. Much words weren't needed anymore. The forest around them burned slightly. Reminder of what they'd done and what they still might have to do. But for now, they had each other. And no hunter, no scar, no memory could take that away. The jungle was quiet again, not with peace but with fear. The hunters had fled. But their scent still lingered in the trees. Ashes from the battle smoldered in patches on the ground. And in the center of it all, Ethan sat beside the fire, tired, bruised and breathing. Lyra paced behind him, arms crossed. She hadn't spoken in a while, but Ethan could feel the storm inside her. Her people knew that she had survived, that she had protected a human. They would return again, next time, with more than arrows. "We can't stay here," Lyra finally said, her voice cold and steady. Ethan nodded. "Where do we go?" "Out toward the east, where mountains cut the sky. The old council," she whispered. "They won't welcome me, but they may listen." That night, they left the cave behind. Every step Ethan took hurt. But he never slowed. Lyra didn't speak, but when he stumbled, she caught him. She didn't say a word, but her hand never left his. After 2 days, they reached the cliffs, a hidden path twisted between stone walls covered in vines. At the end of the trail, a gate stood open, tall and ancient. Carved with glowing alien symbols, 2 guards stepped out, armed with spears of living metal. They pointed their weapons at Lyra. "You have no place here, exile," one hissed. "I bring truth," Lyra said calmly, "and a human who bled for me." The guards looked at Ethan, bloodied, wrapped in cloth, eyes sharp despite the pain. They hesitated, then allowed them in. The chamber of the council was high above the valley. 12 elders sat in a circle of light, robes flowing, eyes glowing. Ethan felt like a bug under glass. Lyra bowed low, her voice calm but full of fire. "I was cast out for helping human captives escape," she began. "I was hunted, nearly killed, betrayed by my own." She stepped aside, and Ethan stepped forward. "I protected her," he said simply. "I fought for her because it was right," the elders murmured among themselves. One leaned forward, an older female with cracked horns and sharp eyes. You are human, she said. You owe us nothing. Yet you spill your blood for one of ours? Yes, Ethan said. Because she's not just one of yours, she's better. Another elder scoffed. Would you make her queen again? Would you claim her as your mate? Ethan blinked, then looked at Lyra. He didn't answer with words, he just took her hand and squeezed it. The council chamber fell silent. Lyra stepped forward, her voice strong. I don't ask for a crown. She said, I only ask for peace and to live without being hunted. The elder woman stared at her for a long time. Then she stood, her voice echoing, We will not harm you. But we cannot protect him. Ethan clenched his fists. Didn't come here to be protected. I came to protect her. The council paused. Then a decision was made. You both may stay. But only if the human survives the trial of flame. Lyra gasped. No, he's not ready. But Ethan stepped forward. I'll do it, he said. Whatever it takes. The trial was ancient, designed to test strength, pain, and spirit. No outsider had ever survived it, but Ethan had survived arrows, betrayal, the jungle, and fear. This was just another step that night. Lyra sat beside him under the stars. You don't have to prove anything, she whispered. Ethan looked at her with soft eyes. I do, he said, not for them. For you, and in that quiet night before the flames, Lyra reached up and touched his face. You already did, she whispered, her voice shaking. But if you die, I will burn the council myself. Ethan laughed softly, then leaned forward, and rested his forehead against hers. No pressure, he said with a grin. But inside, both of them knew the trial wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about deserving the bond they had formed. Asterisk, the morning of the trial arrived with burning red skies. The sun rose slowly behind dark mountains, as if warning what was to come. Ethan stood shirtless in the cold temple chamber, surrounded by alien watchers and glowing crystals. Lyra sat in the crowd, silent, her hands shaking beneath her cloak. She was not allowed to speak, not allowed to stop it. The trial of flame was never meant for outsiders. It was for warriors of Lyra's kind of test of pain, truth, and soul. But Ethan had agreed without hesitation. To them, he was just a man. But to Lyra, he was everything. 2 guards brought forth the ceremonial blade. Its edge shimmered with heat, carved from star-forged stone. An elder stepped forward, holding a bowl of burning ash. Step forward, human, she said coldly. Ethan did. Never. Looking away, you will walk the path of fire, the elder said. If you fall, you're forgotten. If you finish, you are one of us. The room darkened, and the floor opened, revealing a long glowing trail made of burning stone. Each step, a promise of pain. Each step, a memory carved into skin. Ethan took a deep breath. He thought of the arrows, the jungle. The night she first held him, he stepped barefoot onto the flame path. The first step burned instantly, his skin sizzled. He clenched his teeth. Second step, blisters bloomed. Third, his legs shook, but he kept walking. Every step lit old memories, his parents. Long gone, his squad lost in a forgotten battle, his failure, his regrets, his doubts. The fire made him face them all. Lyra watched, eyes wide. She wanted to scream, to pull him out, but she knew this was his moment. Not for glory, but for belonging. Halfway through, Ethan dropped to one knee. The pain was unbearable. The skin on his feet was raw, his breath was ragged, his vision blurry. The elders watched with cold eyes. Another human failure, they thought. Just another body to bury. But then Ethan reached into his pocket and pulled out something small, the ring Lyra had given him. He gripped it tight in his burnt hand and stood back up. One step, another again. He walked like a storm, slow but unstoppable. His body was broken, but his will was not. By the time he reached the end of the path, the fire had nearly consumed his strength. He fell to the ground with a thud, and the world went quiet. The High Elder walked over and looked down at him. The human had finished. For the first time in their history, an outsider had survived the trial. She knelt beside him and placed her glowing hand on his chest. You are one of us now, she said, by fire and by blood. A mark shaped like a flame wrapped in a circle appeared on Ethan's shoulder, a scar that would never fade. a symbol that would never be erased. Lyra rushed to him, tears in her eyes. She knelt beside him, pressed her forehead to his, and whispered, "You came back." He opened one swollen eye, smiled weakly, and whispered, "I told you I would." She held his burned hands in hers. "You should hate me for this," she said. "I'd go through it again," he replied, "for you." Always, the crowd watched silently as Lyra helped Ethan stand. He could barely walk, but he smiled. Not because the pain was gone, but because it was worth it. That night under the stars, the elders gathered in a circle. They placed a robe over Ethan's shoulders and a crown of woven vines over Lyra's head. The elders spoke for the first time in our age. "A bond has been forged not by blood, but by choice." The two stood hand in hand before the flames, their scars glowing. Under the moonlight, and the fire that once burned to judge, now burned to bless. 3 moons rose over the alien valley that night. Their silver light touched the mountain peaks, the jungle trees, and a small home made of stone and vines. Inside, the air was warm, the fire gentle, and Ethan's breathing steady as he rested. Beside Lyra, weeks had passed since the trial of flame. His feet still bore the scars. His hands still ached, but his heart was light. He was no longer a stranger, no longer a visitor. He had become something more, a bridge between worlds. Lyra brought him tea made from glowing flowers and laughed when he made a face. "It's good for healing," she said. "Tastes like boiled bark." Ethan muttered, but drank it anyway. She shook her head, smiling. "You humans complain too much. And yet you still keep me around," he said, raising an eyebrow. Their home sat near a quiet stream, surrounded by tall trees and soft moss. Half of it was made from alien stone, cut with precision, and covered in ancient carvings. The other half, Ethan's touch metal pieces, earth tech, solar panels. Together it looked strange. But it was perfect. They had built it with their own hands. Not just as shelter, but as a promise, each morning. Lyra taught local children how to speak both languages, each afternoon. Ethan trained curious alien scouts how to use human tools. And each evening, the two of them would sit on the roof, watching the sky. News had spread across the nearby systems. A human had passed the trial. A royal exile had been welcomed again, and more surprisingly, they had chosen each other. Visitors came, often curious soldiers, cautious traders, and even other outcasts. Some asked questions, some came to argue, but most just wanted to understand. Ethan welcomed them all with the same words. "Sit down. I'll tell you how it started with a girl tied to a tree. And too many arrows in my back," Lyra would always add with a grin. "And a human too stubborn to die." But not everything was easy. Some clans still hated Lyra. Some envoys still looked at Ethan like a disease. And every so often, someone left a symbol of warning near their home-old signs of war and hate. But Ethan didn't flinch anymore, and Lyra didn't run, because now, they weren't standing alone one night during the Festival of New Suns. The stars above burned bright with green fire. Lyra stood before the small crowd, her voice soft but strong. "My people once believed humans were dangerous, cruel, and wild," she said, "but I found one who gave me his back to block an arrow, and never asked for anything in return." Ethan stood beside her, a dark cloak covering his still healing body. He didn't speak much, he just took her hand and raised it in the air. That was enough. That said everything. After the celebration, Lyra and Ethan sat by the stream, their feet in the water. The forest was quiet, peaceful now. "I used to think I'd die alone," Lyra said softly. "I used to think I wasn't meant for anything," Ethan replied. "Just another soldier with a tired heart." She leaned against his shoulder, and now, he looked up at the stars and smiled. "I think scars are just proof we were brave enough to love." She closed her eyes, her voice barely a whisper. "Promise me. If another war comes, you'll run with me." Ethan shook his head slowly. "No," he said, "if it comes, we face it together." And she didn't argue. She just reached into her pouch and pulled out a second bond ring. Matching the one he still kept, even burned and blackened, she placed it gently on his finger. Not a symbol of ownership, but of survival, of choice, of fire. Their home may not have looked like much to others, but to them, was a kingdom built from pain and hope. A place where a human and an alien girl, once hunted and broken, had become something stronger than war, something louder than blood, a family.